Hello everyone. In this session, we're going to be taking a look at certificate deployment, validation, and revocation. Now, when a user or a computer obtains a certificate, this is referred to as enrollment. There are various methods that one can use to carry out enrollment. The first method we want to look at is the manual method. And the user will use the certificate console to perform this manual enrollment. The first thing that happens is that the user generates the request locally on their computer. That request is then transferred to the certificate authority for processing. The certificate authority in turn issues the certificate and transfers it back to the requesting user for installation. You're only going to be using manual enrollment when you cannot communicate directly with the certificate authority. A second method of enrollment is auto-enrollment. And as the name suggests, this method requires no user intervention. This type of enrollment is done using group policy. Active Directory domain services must be employed in this method because the computer or the user has to be a domain member. This method can be used for requesting, retrieving, and renewing certificates for domain members. A third method is web enrollment. In this method, users can request and retrieve certificates by using a website. If you're going to use this method, the administrator must install the web enrollment service on the certificate authority server. This method is used if the user is not a member of the domain or cannot contact a certificate authority on the domain. Then there is another method referred to as on behalf of, and this is the method where an administrator is going to perform the enrollment for the user or on behalf of the user. In this method, the administrator actually has to create an enrollment agent. And this enrollment agent is a user account that is going to be used to request enrollment on behalf of the user. We're going to be looking at a practical example of setting up auto-enrollment. Remember that auto-enrollment enables users and computers to obtain and renew certificates without user intervention. So this is a relatively simple method for the administrator to establish certificate infrastructure. Also, please note that auto-enrollment is not available with a standalone CA. It must be implemented on an enterprise CA where the user or the computer is a member of the domain. We're going to do this in Group Policy, so we're going to click on Tools, Group Policy Management. We're going to be editing the default domain policy. So we click on Edit on the default domain policy. And we want to click on Computer Configuration, Policies, Windows Settings, Security Settings, Public Key Policies. In the Details pane, we want to click on Certificate Services Client Auto Enrollment. We want to double click on that. and we want to select Enable from the drop-down box. And there are two things that we want to select here. We want to select Renew Expired Certificates, Update Pending Certificates, and Remove Revoked Certificates. And the second item is Update Certificates that use certificate templates. We also want to check that one off. We want to go ahead and click on Apply and OK. And in this Details pane, we can also configure the certificate enrollment policy. And this one here, Certificate Services Client Enrollment Policy. And for this one, you want to enable that also by clicking on Enabled. And the Active Directory Enrollment Policy is automatically enabled. So we can click on Apply and OK. And we now want to close the Group Policy Management Editor. We want to turn our attention to certificate revocation. Why would a certificate be revoked? Well, the most common reason for revocation occurs when a certificate's private key has been compromised. The secure socket layer protocol, which is an encryption protocol that you use for signing digital certificates, uses a pair of keys, one private and one public. And this pair of keys is used to authenticate and secure and manage secure connections. The keys are created together as a pair, and they work together to set up a secure connection. So the most common reason for revocation of a certificate would be that that private key has been compromised. Other reasons why a certificate might be revoked would be that the issuing certificate authority itself has been compromised, or if the certificate is no longer valid for its intended purpose, or if the user or computer no longer qualifies to use the certificate, or maybe the certificate is no longer valid for its intended purpose. To revoke a certificate, we have to go to the Certificate Authority console, and in the Issue Certificates folder in the Details pane, we're going to right-click the certificate that you want to revoke. Let us take a look. Let's go ahead and click on Tools, Certificate Authority. We want to expand the CA, and we want to right-click on Revoke Certificates and select Properties. On the CRL Publishing Parameter tab, we need to configure the CRL publication interval, and you can make a choice here. We also want to configure the published delta CRL, the publication interval, and you can make your choice here for the publication interval. Let's click on the View CRL tab, which should give us a list of the revoked certificates. Let's click on View CRL again. We can see certificate revocation list information for the revoked certificate. Let's click on the X to close that revocation list. And we want to go ahead and click on OK at this point. So that shows us how we can access that revocation list and how we can configure the certificate revocation information. Bear in mind that on the CRL Publishing Parameters tab, we did two things. We configured the CRL publication interval and publish delta CRL. We also want to take a look at configuring and managing key archival and recovery. Now, it is important that your digital certificates and the corresponding keys are kept secure. But what happens if you lose the keys that were used to encrypt the data files? If that happens, you might no longer be able to access those files. The keys can be compromised, for example, if you reinstalled an operating system, if your hard disk becomes corrupt, if the user's computer is stolen or lost. So, to help protect against data loss arising from the loss of keys, you can actually configure key archival and key recovery agents. And this key archival has to be enabled both on the certificate authority and on the specific certificate templates. And to do this, to enable key archival, we also have to enable what we call a key recovery agent. And this requires that you install a key recovery agent certificate. And we are going to go ahead now and install a key recovery agent certificate. To enable the key recovery agent, we have to go to the certificate template console and locate the key recovery agent template. So we're going to right click on certificate templates, we're going to click on manage, and we want to find the key recovery agent template. And we can see it here in the list, key recovery agent template. And we want to right click that template and select properties. We want to select the issuance requirements tab. And we want to clear the CA certificate manager approval checkbox. And then click on OK. We're going to switch back to the Certificate Authority console. And we're going to right click Certificate Templates. We're going to point to New. And then click Certificate Templates to issue. In the Enable Certificate Templates dialog box, we want to select the Key Recovery Agent template. So let's scroll down and look for that. Key Recovery Agent. And then we want to click on OK once that's selected. And we now want to enroll a certificate using that Key Recovery Agent template. And to do that, we are going to go into the MMC. and add certificate template. So we're going to click here on run. We're going to type MMC, click on OK, and then you want to file, add remove snapping. We want to add the certificate console, and we want to choose the user account. So we're going to set the focus to the current user, which is there by default. Click on finish and click on OK. We're going to expand that certificate, and we want to right click on personal and point to all tasks and click the request new certificate. In the certificate enrollment wizard, we want to go ahead and click next. We want to select Active Directory Policy on the Select Certification Enrollment Policy page, and then click Next. On the Request Certificate page, we want to select the Key Recovery Agent checkbox and click Enroll. So we're going to scroll down and look for the Key Recovery Agent checkbox. And once we have selected that, we want to click on Enroll. And we need to wait until it's completed, and we can see the status says succeeded. And we want to click on Finish. Let's go ahead and close the console. Our final step is configuring the CA to allow for key recovery. What we want to do now is to right-click on our CA, Contoso DCCA, and click on Properties. We want to click the Recovery Agent tab. And select the Archive the Key. There's the second option here, Archive the Key checkbox. And then we want to click on Add. On the Key Recovery Agent selection, you want to go ahead and click on OK. And you want to close the Contoso DCCA property box. In this session, we took a look at the deployment of certificates using the auto-enrollment method. We also looked at the steps for performing revocation for certificates. This is the end of our session, and we would like to thank you for listening.